Hello, guys. So, I know it's been a couple months. I apologize. I've been collecting the last of these 50s movies for you, along with going through personal things, 2020 problems. Uh, I'm gonna try and get all of these done in one video. I really don't want there to be a part 3 to this. There might be, hopefully not. So if I don't say too much about these, I apologize in advance. It's just a lot to cover. So, we're on 1956. So, the first one I got here is The Bad Seed. This has Patty McCormick in it. I have the book to this. I've never read it. But the movie I liked. It was a little long. It was more psychological. Basically, this is kind of the mom in this thinks something's wrong with her daughter because her daughter is she doesn't show emotion, and she doesn't really deal with situations like most children do, and she's a little bit smarter for her age. And then there's an accident with with one of her classmates, and then that kind of becomes the reason why she feels like she's being manipulated by her daughter. It's really good. It's got a pretty wild ending. I liked it. It felt like a kind of drawn out Twilight Zone, to be honest, but I did like it. This is where we start to kind of dip into the science fiction. So in the 1950s, America was basically afraid of nuclear war, and a lot of the films that were coming out at that time were considered escapism films, which is where an audience member could go to it and learn more about themselves through the movie, even though it was just a movie. But this is a good example of humans turning on each other, which is Forbidden Planet. And this actually has Leslie Nielsen. You might know him from like the Naked Gun movies and Airplane and Scary Movie 3 and 4. But this was really cool. It's kind of hard to explain it, but basically they end up on this planet, and there was life there 20 years ago, but when they get there, it's deserted. There's just one man there who's a doctor, but you find out that he's kind of unleashed something in the universe. It's pretty interesting. It's in color. This is my Invasion of the Body Snatchers films. The original came out in 56, and it has that, what's his name? Kevin McCarthy, who's in like UHF. This was pretty cool. I had never really seen this before until I got the Blu-ray. I prefer the 70s one over the 50s one. This version's from 78, and it's got Donald Sutherland. It's got Jeff Goldblum. This one, I feel, touches on a lot more in the film. You see a lot more special effects. And I thought, the 70s is one of my favorite decades, which is why I can't wait to get to that decade in general. But this one just has more going for it. There's more plot line, more explanation. They change it a little bit in each version, the storyline. Again, I apologize I'm not going into too much detail, but I guess there's always like the analysis film or the analysis videos you can watch of some of these. Now, this is a 4-pack, and I have a Body Snatchers film in it from the 90s. This has, like, Meg Tilly in it. The other 3 films I like, not as much, though. But the 90s one is good. The 70s one I would still say is better out of the other 2. This is the 2007 version? Yeah. The Invasion with Nicole Kidman. This is a lot more psychological thriller. Less science fiction, again, more psychological thriller. But this one I liked just because it was very non-stop action. There's a lot of like running scenes, and this one has really good pacing in it, I would say. And I personally like Nicole Kidman. So, but again, that's just me. This is The King and I, again, 1956. This one I actually got because I watched it in grade school, and I secretly liked it. So I thought, you know, when I was going through the list of movies that came out in 56, I thought, why not? Also, I'd like to clarify, I'm not buying every single fucking movie ever made. It's more or less just movies that I've always been interested in, or movies that I remember seeing like the covers to as a kid. Like, I don't know if any of you went to like Blockbuster, or any of you went into like a video rental store back when there was like VHS. But I personally remember seeing the covers to a lot of them, and that made me curious to watch some of them too. So it's kind of like I'm coming full circle, or coming back around to get to those movies I didn't watch yet. But The King and I is good. This one runs a little long too. I think I got maybe like an hour and a half into this. Now, this is my Superman collection. Now, just want to say before I even get into this, I'm not like a DC or Marvel. I'm not like a freakish fan for those genres, and I'm not like a comic person. Maybe someday I will get into that, but this is more or less I wanted the live action versions of this, so I have my Superman collection. This is a lot of them, so holy shit. I have the 56 show, which has George Reeves. This I didn't get too into. I was a little disappointed by it. It's not very organized. It wasn't a very organized show. I'll give it that. Now this is a 3-pack, but it's got the first Superman in it from 78, and then it's got Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, and randomly Superman Returns, which is just random that they threw that on there. I really like the Christopher Reeve Supermans, like all 4 of them, because I really think that they represent that time period again, and I just like the feeling and the way they were constructed. I really think Christopher Reeve is maybe my favorite Superman. At least probably top 5. Wait, top 5? Were there even 5 that played him? Anyways, Superman 3 with, this has got, let me find his name. Richard Pryor, the comedian. This is so funny. And I really think Richard Pryor steals the show in this. I mean, his character is like balls out hilarious. So the third, and maybe that takes away for some people, but I really thought that the third one was good. And then again, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, Christopher Reeve. This one, you could tell that they didn't put as much effort into this one, or if they did, they were just taking it in a weird direction, but probably my least favorite out of the 4 with Christopher Reeve. Then, probably gonna get judged for this too, but I don't give a fuck. Supergirl. Now, I know this is a completely different thing from Superman. I just relate it to Superman because it falls into that same super universe. But anyways, this is the 84 film, which I've heard actually gets shit on quite a bit. And Faye Dunaway is in this. And I actually really like her. She was in Mommy Dearest 2-3 years before this came out. And she kind of has that same vibe, like she's playing Joan Crawford. Maybe it's just me, but she kind of comes off that way. But I really liked this. I mean, I wouldn't say it was like, again, I'm not like heavily obsessed with the origin of Superman or the comics, so I'm not trying to critique it watching it. It's just more just watching the film. But then I got the Supergirl show, which came out, I think, a couple years ago. Maybe it just came out this year. Anyways, this is a good show too. I think the show is pretty awesome, and it's pretty action-packed. Her sister is a bitch in the show, though. I mean, she's just really hard on her. Now, these shows came out in the 80s, and the first one's Superboy. I didn't really get into this. It felt very... He didn't make me believe he was Superman too good in this show. This is another one that felt very sloppy, kind of like the 56 show. Now, the Lois and Clark show, The New Adventures of Superman, I really like this. It's melodramatic, but it has that like kind of 90s feeling. I think this came out in 89. No, this show did come out in the 90s. So it really has that 90s melodramatic, like kind of adult humor vibe, which is cool to see that because, again, Superman is Clark Kent working for the newspaper, the uh, Daily Planet. Is that right? I'm really sorry if I'm screwing this all up, but there is that melodramaticness with him working with Lois. So I like this show. I think it's pretty good. Smallville. This came out in 2001. I only have season 1. I really am digging this though. I might get season 2 depending. It is weird that he's like friends with oh my god, I can't even think of his name, the bald guy. It's weird that they're friends in this show. Lex Luthor. Now these are the Zack Snyder films, and I personally think he did a good job making Man of Steel. I really like that he took the concept of if Superman really were to come to planet Earth, the government and the world would be afraid of him first and want to make some sort of deal with him before they just let him start saving the planet. I really liked that they made him they were afraid of him and that he was more of a rebel in this and on his own and even more isolated than he was in the other, stories. And the actor who played him in this, who ended up playing him in the next few movies, I actually really like him. Again, to each their own, I guess. But Batman vs. Superman 2016. Now this again, I know is pretty out there, especially if you are like a DC fan. This one's pretty out there, but I really enjoy this just for the sake of seeing something unique and different. And as for Ben Affleck playing Batman, I am probably going to get more into that later. Justice League. Now, I know that Zack Snyder is making a different cut of this for next year, and it's going to have more in it, more about the storylines. I am excited to see that. However, I do like this for what it is, even though it does have a kind of a halo of bad luck around it. But I remember when I saw this in theaters even kind of feeling like it was odd, but I there are things I enjoy about it, and I do enjoy the interactions of some of the characters. Again, I think so far I'm not all the way through all of these films and all the decades yet, but so far my favorite superhero might be Superman. However, I do like Batman. Anyways, Brightburn. This is the 2019 horror take on the film with Elizabeth Banks. This is where they just kind of stick to when he was younger and how he transforms and comes to find his abilities. Way darker stuff. It's a way darker take on it. But it is pretty cool to see. And it would be nice to see a sequel to this, I feel. At least in my opinion. Oh, okay. Third stack. So, now we have this Elvis film, Jailhouse Rock. And yes, he does have the song too. This is basically him in the film becoming a recording artist and the struggles he goes through with friendship and kind of how money changes him and the people around him. And I like it. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Elvis films. There's one he did called Blue Hawaii I'm interested in seeing, but this was the only one I've actually seen, and I'm glad I got it just because it does have the Jailhouse Rock scene in it, which became, I think, known as the music video. Now this show I never really watched growing up, and I kind of just, some of these I picked just by like instinct, and I'm kind of glad I did pick this, but it's Leave It to Beaver. I ended up liking this show a lot more than I thought I would. It is rather enjoyable, and I like the dynamics of the family. Again, it's old school, but I enjoy the characters on it, and I need to watch more of this because I haven't really dove into this. I know it's probably weird that some of these I just have one season of, but I don't want to go overboard and buy, all 5 seasons of a show I'm not going to end up liking. This is Old Yeller, which is, like a dog movie, as I guess that genre would be put. This is basically Disney trying to make their own rendition of Lassie. And I say that, and I'm not saying it to be rude or anything like that. This is a good movie, but it's got a sad fucking ending. Won't tell you what it is. But I personally think that Lassie's a better movie. The Lassie Goes Home from 43. I think that's in my 40s video. But this one is good. Not as good as that one. The Seventh Seal. Now, this is a really interesting film, and I'm really gonna have a hard time explaining this. It's a Swedish film. Basically, it takes place, I want to say, after the First World War or the Cold War. I'm so sorry if I'm fucking this all up, which I'm sure I am. But basically, it's an artsy type film. Max von Sydow, who plays the priest in The Exorcist, is in this. And he comes face to face with the Grim Reaper, who challenges him to a game of chess and is basically haunting him and his views on religion. I really liked this. I mean, again, if you're not into films where you have to read, I wouldn't get this because it's a foreign film, but I enjoyed it. It's black and white. The imagery in it is very haunting, and this one kind of stuck with me, even though it's old. This is just a horror pack. I don't know why I put this in with the other ones, but it looks like it mostly has movies from the 60s. It's got House on Haunted Hill from 59 with Vincent Price, so maybe that's why that's there. Dunkirk. This is the 2017 film. There's one from 59 that I can't find a copy of. This one, though, it's about the British troops. Yeah, the British troops who end up getting attacked at Dunkirk. And this one, I was expecting it to be a little bit harder to watch, but I actually really did get into this. It's shot very claustrophobic and very anxiety ridden. The music is very tension building. And this has Harry Styles in it, which I was very impressed. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. This is a very odd film. It's not very long. And Lana Del Rey actually does a rendition to this in her music video to Doing Time. So there's all of these films from the 50s about like these spaceships from outer space coming to Earth, and then there's something inside of the ship or the comet. But she touches something in the comet and then she grows 50 feet tall. So then I have these Blob movies. Now, I had never seen the original from 58 with Steve McQueen, so I got that one. And this actually comes with a sequel that came out in the 70s. I think these are both pretty goofy. The 70s one I enjoyed a lot more, just because, again, that's more my decade for films. But I did like the one with Steve McQueen as well. The one I really like is the one from the 80s. This one has Shawnee Smith from Saw in it, and is a lot more gory. There's a lot more body horror in this, and it just really goes there. I mean, most of the films from the 80s just really go there. And I would say that the Blob remake from the 80s is just, like, badass. This one I got because I'm a Elizabeth Taylor fan. I'm becoming one, watching her films. This one I didn't like that much. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I said this before in one of my other videos. I don't like movies that deal with tragic love, that the movie is basically just a woman or a man struggling in a relationship with power, and it's them spiraling out of control. Like, I appreciate those kind of films, but I don't like that kind of shit being shoved down my throat. And especially, this one just kind of had that a little bit. Not bashing on Elizabeth Taylor, because I want to see more of her movies. These are my Fly films. The one from 58 with Vincent Price is cool. This was more psychological. You didn't really see a lot going on in this. It's more of things you heard. And the movie is more of like a flashback. But in the 86 version with Jeff Goldblum, David Cronenberg directed this. and we'll get more into him later too. But David Cronenberg, he really went there with his version and amped the special effects, amped the story. His really goes there, and again, more body horror. 80s just had a lot of body horror and slime and goo. But The Fly is disgusting, but I love it. Now, William Castle was a director that started making films in the 50s, a lot of gimmicky horror films. He made films before the 50s, but his horror films are what got him, like, well known. So he made one in 58 called Macabre. This is basically like a doctor who moves to this town, and a lot of people don't respect him because the night his wife died, he was, like, hanging out with another woman, and then one of his other daughters die, and then the other one gets kidnapped, and he has to, like, figure out where she is, and whoever called to tell him that his daughter was gone, like, said she was buried. This one's very psychological, and, like, the acting in this I think is really good. Check it out if you want to see something very tensiony from the 50s. Touch of Evil. This has Charlton Heston, Janet Leigh, and Orson Welles. Orson Welles directed this, I believe. Yes. And this was really interesting. It's about crooked cops and just kind of the bad shit they get involved with if they know too much, or they're doing things for the wrong reasons. And Janet Leigh, I love her. I love Charlton Heston. This was just a good vibe. This movie is a little long. It could have had like maybe 20 or 30 minutes cut out, but this is a good movie. Ben-Hur. This is another Charlton Heston one. Now this, I had never seen this before. This is actually about, I think it's predating, well, it's talking about Judah and Jerusalem and how he is rebelling against the Roman Empire. I guess that would be considered pre-Christianity or BC. But this one I really liked. This one's very long. It's split up into like parts, but this one was very moving. I got very emotional during it. The remake from 2016 didn't get into this as much. I don't know any of the actors from this movie. I knew more of the actors in this than I did from this version, and I couldn't watch a lot of that. Didn't do anything for me. Alright, so this is the last pile I got. Now, Dennis the Menace, that was something I feel like a lot of people grew up watching and knowing about, and I kind of missed out on that one. I came back around to it when I started watching a lot of shit on cable, but I didn't know there was a show from the 50s, and this, I like. It's actually a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be, and it's very, very goofy. And it kind of like Leave It to Beaver, but the kid's a little bit more of a smartass. At least in my opinion. Then there's the Dennis the Menace movie from 93 with Walter Matthau and Christopher Lloyd as the villain in it. This one, again, this is like the one everyone grew up watching, and I think it's pretty cool. And I get why everybody kind of sees it as a classic, because it just has that vibe to it. It's so, like, wild. It's just a wild film. This is the sequel to the 90s one, Dennis the Menace Strikes Again. This has Don Rickles and Betty White and Carrot Top. If you know who Carrot Top is. This one really is, like, weird and wild. And it's almost not watchable, but to me it's so ridiculous it is watchable. And I don't know if anyone feels that way about some movies, but I kind of feel that way about this movie. It was, like, so ridiculous that I had to keep watching. This is a foreign film again. I think it was Italian. Eyes Without a Face. This was, like, about a kind of crooked doctor who had botched his daughter's face. He was trying to, like, give her plastic surgery, and he put different skin on her face and it wouldn't take, so she had to start wearing a mask. And then he starts, like, kidnapping all these other women and trying to cut their faces off. And you actually see him cutting skin off of women's faces. It goes there. But it's black and white, and I really liked the vibe of this. I thought it was really eerie, especially with her wearing the mask. Now, House on Haunted Hill, like I said, I have it in that pack. I don't have, like, a physical copy. I think I have, like, a VHS tape of it. But this is the 90s one. This has a lot of good actors from the 90s in it, and the music is great in this. This is a good remake. I like that you actually see more of the supernatural aspects in this, because you don't really in the original. In the original, not trying to be like spoiling it, but it's more of a gimmick thing. In this, it's not really a gimmick. In that one, it's more you're seeing shit. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Now, that was another one I had never really seen or gotten into. There's the originals from the 50s, and this has James Mason in it. I thought it was a Disney movie, but I guess it's not. This one I liked. It was interesting. Except at the end of it, it was like they were shooting reptiles and kind of stretching them out to make them look like they were giants. Kind of like they were on Skull Island, like filming like reptiles in cages. It was just ridiculous. Now, the one with Brendan Fraser that came out in 2008, I liked this. I don't know if I'd watch it again because it was a little ridiculous, especially because you could tell a lot of it were gimmicks for 3D. A lot of the stuff coming towards you was 3D gimmicks, so it's a little weird watching that like 2D. And I don't know if I probably won't watch the sequel to that. There was like I think this is a BBC version on television. I watched 30 minutes of this and could not go any further. Just no. This one I think I've talked about before too. I have this also in the Alfred Hitchcock pack, but it's his film North by Northwest. This is the one where the government's kind of screwing Cary Grant over. He's kind of caught in between this swindle with the FBI and like with the Russian government or something, or the British government. And this one also has James Mason in it. I like this one. It's pretty wild. Pillow Talk. This has Rock Hudson and Doris Day. This was like they're sharing like a party line. This was back when like you had to share like the same line as like your neighbor if you lived in the same apartment with somebody. And she has to share this line with this guy, and he finds out he's attracted to her, so he starts trying to pretend to be someone else so she'll fall in love with him. It's a big mess, but it's kind of cute. Now, these are my Sleeping Beauty films. This was one, growing up, I knew I liked it. I had seen it like on Disney, but I didn't own it, so I didn't reference it all the time. But this is the original from 59, the cartoon. I love this. I love Maleficent. I love her look in it. This one's magical, and the digital transfer, the Blu-ray on this is so amazing. You can't see like the stop motion of the animation. It's great. Now, these are the Maleficent films, the newer ones with Angelina Jolie. I like these because they get more into the origins of her, like where she comes from and who she was before she cursed. I can't think of her name in the movie now, but before she curses the princess. And this one, the sequel goes even further into like who she descends from and stuff. I liked these. I really think Angelina Jolie really dove into these and made these films really good, and shows like this coldness but also this like vulnerability. Now, this last one's also a William Castle movie, and it's called The Tangler. Now, this I really like. However, I recently found out that there's a scene in this that they ripped off from The Blob. And if you've seen both films or either one, I think you'll know what I'm talking about, but there's a scene in the movie theater. And it's like maybe it's just like a thing they did in Creature Features, but there's a scene where it's like the creature's in the movie theater while they're watching a horror movie kind of thing. This is really cool though. William Castle used a lot of gimmicks to get people to watch his movies. Like with this one, he would electrify the seats or something like that. And when he did House on Haunted Hill, he had like the skeleton that would fly down at the audience. So those are pretty much all my movies from the 50s. Again, I know not all of them are technically from the 50s, but my way of thinking is if I buy a film and there's a remake to it I want to see or a sequel I want to see to it, I might as well watch that and put that in the review as well, because I'm going to keep going through each, decade, and there's no point in like trying to go back to it. It'll just make it more confusing. But if you're watching, thank you for waiting this long. Again, life just kind of happens and shit happens, but hopefully I'll have the next video up soon. I'm getting into the 60s era now, but we'll see how quickly that evolves. So thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more.